My name is Michael Broadway, and thanks for coming today to hear my presentation. Today I'm going to be talking about orientation to the counseling profession, and this will be a narrated presentation. We were given the task to find our favorite out of the chapters and to talk a little bit about them. I had a hard time, but chapter 6 was probably my favorite, and that has to do with the overall holistic counseling process. I particularly liked this quote from the introduction. The counseling process embodies the art and sciences of helping. The client makes the decision to receive services, creating an opportunity for the counseling relationship to begin. Professional counselors bring their training, experiences, and personalities into the process. Once initiated, counseling occurs over a series of stages that include information gathering, application of theory to generate relevant goals, treatment, assessment, and termination. Students beginning the path to becoming a professional counselor are encouraged to consider their fit within the process of the professional of counseling. I really liked this because it was holistic and it kind of made a bullet point list of what it looked like to be a professional counselor. And after all, that is my dream. I had to pick my favorites, so I went with the helping process, what brings clients to counseling, initiation of counseling, structure of counseling, and then finally termination. So this is what I'm going to discuss today. The art, the process of helping with art. Students need more than a degree to become a professional counselor. Theory, research, and practice is needed to develop these skills. That's what Erford says. And I really liked that. That resonated for me because as a scientist, I tend to generate towards mathematical formulas. But people are complex, right? There is no mathematical formula for best helping someone. Instead, you have a series of skills. And learning how to apply those can be really tricky. And so there is a degree of skillfulness or art that's needed to best be a counselor. So I like that Erford starts with first pointing to the counselor themselves. What are your motivations in this helping relationship? Is it that you want to give people advice? And then he task us with a little bit of introspection here. What does it mean to be a good helper? And probably the most convicting part, what parts of my being can get in the way of being a good helper? Maybe the very thing, wanting to offer advice to help people, might actually be a hindrance to being a good counselor. So I really enjoyed this introspection process, and I thought it was really well laid out. Next, the helping process as a science. I liked this as well. This the idea that, scientific methodology or research is fundamentally a part of the counseling degree. It's not separable. And then also when students graduate, it continues to be a part of the practice. So the scientific methodology is using evidence-based treatments. It's evaluating the effectiveness of your treatments. And it's about pivoting whenever you're not getting the results that you potentially expect. So research is necessary also to stay relevant. So if you remember the scientific methodology, it's really just about when you have a client coming in, forming a question and then making a hypothesis around that. But the most important step is actually somewhere in between. It's conducting research. So when someone comes in and they're giving you a complaint, informing yourself as a counselor, making sure that you have the most recent and current information on that topic, even if you've treated it in years past, saying with a degree of humility, let me go research this a little bit and see if there's new techniques or new ways of treating people more effectively. So that really resonated with me. I enjoyed that. What brings clients into counseling? Well, I like what Erford here, he switches from the counselor now to client focus. And we see here this quote where clients exhaust their resources, as we face the pressures of life and many difficult conditions that living can create for anyone, it becomes clear that the inability to cope with life is the driving force for someone to seek counseling. I really liked that. That resonated because it generates sympathy. It generates empathy on behalf of the counselor. We need to understand that there's a lot of barriers to people coming and seeking mental health counseling. Maybe it's limited availability in their area, just not being able to take off work, or even the cost. Sometimes maybe even a lack of social support. Maybe they'll be judged for needing help. So I think counselors need to understand that people have reached the end of themselves and their ability to cope. And so it's really a cry for help. So when clients come in, they don't really necessarily know why they need help. And so they're going to come in with a presenting complaint, but it's really important that the counselor will dig down a level deeper. If the problem was that clear and obvious, they likely wouldn't need the counselor's help, right? So they need the professional skills, and that needs to be met with empathy and with grace. So that goes again to the next part, which is initiating counseling. So this, how do we go about this? What does the counseling environment even look like? I thought this was very pragmatic and really well laid out by Erford. It reminded me of this scene from It's a Wonderful Life where you have George Bailey sitting low in the chair as Mr. Potter is scowling down. Even Napoleon seems to be looking at him with contempt. So this is not what we should be doing, right? It should be client-centered. We should be avoiding overly personal or divisive or intimidating atmospheres. And we have to always remember that there's this placebo effect at play. To quote the Bible, it says, "For as he thinks in his heart, so is he." Or, to quote Erford, recall the act of placebo. Knowledge of who you are can actually help clients before you actually even begin providing services. And so when clients walk into a professional atmosphere, the very fact that they're expecting help often does yield a placebo effect. I think that's really fascinating. Of course, there's privacy concerns, so maybe a noise machine outside of the door, or preventing a large window with snoopy people walking by. I think this is really important that we protect client privacy. The structure of counseling, what does it actually look like? The nuts and bolts. I like that Erford goes into some practicality here, talking about things like informed consent and how that needs to be both presented as a paperwork, but also something that you discuss in the first session. Even things like confidentiality and the rights of the client, ethical standards, but then also talking about very pragmatic things like fees and cancellation policies, and what is the structure of the counseling sessions going to be. So I thought this was really well laid out, including the intake form and how to gather some basic documentation for the counselor. And we always have to have the end in mind, just like this wounded eagle. We hope to set our clients free, right? So we need to consider our own attachments and we need to consider that we need to see our clients reach health and well being. It's not about keeping them in this relationship, but it's about seeing them thrive. So I hope you have enjoyed my presentation. Thank you so much for listening.